Welcome to Arizona Audio Stories. I'm James Garcia. Normally, you may know me as the host of Vanguardia Arizona on La Onda 99.5 FM or 1190 AM. Today, I'm guest hosting here with the Arizona Audio Stories, and my guest is Roni Capin Rivera-Ashford, the author of What Color is Your Hand or De Que Color es Tu Mano? Roni, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, James. Thank you for having me, and thanks to Audio Stories. I'm really excited to be here.
Let's dive right into the book. This is a book that was inspired by what? I mean, it's a very unique title and it's a very unique story. As I understand, it's illustrated by Walter Thompson, and the book story deals with a young mixed-race boy and his grandmother. Talk about what the inspiration was for this story.
The inspiration was my grandson, and to this date, I have one grandchild. And when he was 3 years old, his mother is from Africa. She is a refugee. And so our hands were very different shades of color.
Yeah.
And he noticed that when he was 3 years old one day, when we were in a setting holding hands, and he was quite upset about it. And so I needed to take that moment to be a teaching moment for him and bring in a lot of understanding and tenderness, and just explain to him that my hand was like cream and his mother's color hand is like coffee. And if you mix them together, it's like coffee and cream or hot chocolate.
And he was upset by what? The fact that
He was startled, I believe, by just noticing at that moment of a child's mind that my hand and his hand were such a different color.
Oh, fascinating. Yeah. And that's the kind of thing, the sort of the poignant thing that authors, just latch on to.
Right.
When did this happen? How long is it taking you to write the book?
It has taken 24 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So I wrote the story a long time ago.
Okay.
And of course, over the course of 24 years, I am grateful to say that I have published 4 other of my own bilingual books, and also several books for Disney Pixar that they contracted me to do to accompany the movie Coco.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot during that time. I'm now a retired bilingual educator, and so I've polished the story quite a bit. And as they say, everything happens in its own perfect timing. And I believe that that is true of this book, because I found the most amazing, talented illustrator and who's brought this to life.
And now it's Walter Thompson. Interesting background. He's the son-in-law, or what is his relationship to former Congressman Raul Grijalva?
Yes, he is Congressman Raul Grijalva's son-in-law.
Okay.
And he and his wife both went to school with my oldest son years ago.
Yeah.
And he chose to use a pen name, which is Walter Thompson.
Okay. Now the book itself, you address this issue of kind of mixed race status and kind of how it is thought of sort of in American society today, in Arizona society. But it's also come at an interesting time in terms of, sort of this broad kind of backlash towards the idea of diversity and, DEI and all of those issues. And in fact, there's efforts even on a national level to somehow silence stories about diverse communities.
Right.
Have you seen a kind of response yet from readers or people in the community to the idea that you're speaking about an issue that's so timely?
Yes, I believe this is an issue that is timely, and it is bringing our oneness to light, that we are all one race, which is the human race.
Mm-hmm.
It's reflected in John Lennon's song Imagine, which is what came to my mind when I was writing the story. And the grandmother is talking to her grandchild and telling him that her favorite song, or one of her favorite songs growing up, was the song Imagine, and that was one of the most famous songs about world peace.
Okay.
And so then he asks about it curiously, of course, And she explains to him what it means. And then they get into a lot of discussion. And that discussion is simplified so that he can understand it. And it's also brought to life in the artwork.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's we're in sort of very polarized times, but it seems like part of what your book is trying to achieve is to sort of do away with that, to somehow
Absolutely.
quell the idea of sort of polarized societies.
Right.
And what has been as you've kind of looked around at sort of the trends, if you will, in society today, what's happening in the political world and all of that. Do you give a lot of thought to that as you think about your book, and when you talk to people about your book?
What I'm noticing is that I have so many people that are attracted to the book and that love the message, because the message is our world is a beautiful world that we live in because of the diversity, because all the fish are not only one color, because all the birds in nature are not only one color, because all the butterflies or the flowers in a garden. I mean, how boring would it be if all the flowers were only one color? And so that's what's talked about. And it's brought down to the level of a child.
Yeah.
And yet adults love the theme and they love the illustrations that bring it to life.
Now, you like to say, I think, I've heard you say this before, that your books are for people from 3 to 103.
Absolutely.
So this is a very accessible book for young children, very young children,
Yes.
But also one that parents and grandparents can identify with.
Absolutely. I think everyone who picks up this book can identify with it. And there's a wider audience because it's in English y también en español. De qué color es tu mano? So it's completely bilingual. And it's also dedicated, there's a special in memoriam page in the book to Gabriel Zimmerman, who is the only congressional aide in our country in 222 years who was killed in the line of serving his congresswoman when Gabrielle Giffords was shot.
Gabrielle Giffords from Tucson. Why did you feel it was important to make mention of him and do a memoriam to him?
Because I remember when that happened and how traumatizing that was, that he was a young man who was not quite 30 years old when his life was taken. And he worked as an aide to Congresswoman Giffords, and his job was working with people, and he worked with people reflecting what this story tells us about, that it didn't matter what color their skin was, what their financial, economic status was. He helped everyone.
So his personality kind of reflected what you covered in the book?
Absolutely. And that's really what I cover in the in memoriam page to him, is that who he represented is what this story brings to life.
Yeah. Now this is your 5th bilingual children's book.
That's correct.
And but you're also the author of several other books. Altogether, how many books have you written and gotten published?
Well, my own personal books,
yes,
there are 5. And then I did 6 books for Disney Pixar to go with the Coco movie.
Oh, okay. 6. Wow. Okay,
yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there were several different kinds of stories that they wanted. So the first one was called Miguel and the Amazing Alebrijes. And unfortunately, those are not even being produced anymore.
Okay. But you're concentrating primarily on your books, the bilingual children's books.
That's correct.
And obviously your background as a bilingual educator sort of led to all of this, but why is it so important for you to make sure that you're sitting down and you're writing books that are accessible to children this young, but that they're bilingual? Why is that important for you?
Well, I grew up on the border in Nogales, ambos Nogales, when we could go back and forth between the United States and Mexico with no problem 20 times a day.
I remember those.
Right, to buy tortillas and take our own butter and eat them on the way home, right? And I believe that the more languages that we can speak and cultures that we can identify with, the more we can unify the people in our world. And we're all the same. We're all humans. So if we can communicate with each other, we would have more peace. And I think that's what the song Imagine is talking about. I think that's what this book is talking about. And I think honoring each other's cultures and learning from each other is so important. And I did that when I was teaching. I would teach my students how to read in their home language, English or Español, which is where my first book came from, Los Remedios de mi Nana, My Nana's Remedies, and saying Sana Sana Colita de Rana, all of these sayings that are healing phrases that are known in Spain, that are known in Uruguay, South America, and that are known in Mexico, and that are known here in Arizona, because it brings us together.
One of the, and I should mention to our audience that we've known each other for a number of years, and have worked together, in fact, sometimes because we both have a connection to Raul H. Castro, the former governor, and sometimes do a performance together. But one of your books is a book about Raul Castro called Raulito. Talk just briefly about that. We've got just a couple of minutes before we end.
Sure. Raulito, the first Latino governor of Arizona, or el primer gobernador latino de Arizona. And I'm so honored to have had the opportunity to interview him over a year and a half to create this book. And he was delighted. He left this world 10 years ago, just a few days ago. It was the 10-year anniversary.
Right, April 10th is when he passed away.
Yes. And he left here knowing that there would be a book for young people to tell them about his life. And he was just such an amazing person.
That book is also bilingual, right? That's
yes,
a bilingual
absolutely.
book. What's fascinating about him, and this ties exactly into your own career, is that he was someone who, I guess, thematically believed that education had kind of opened every door for him.
Yes, it did.
And your story about him, Raulito, tells that story.
Yes, it does. It talks about how he embraced education after his sixth grade teacher told him that he was so smart that he could do just about anything he wanted in his life. And he took that and ran with it. And he worked so hard, and he just became a representative of the people, whether they spoke Spanish or English, because he could speak both. And he could speak other languages as well.
Well, I want to wrap up here by letting our readers know that one of the reasons we wanted to sit down with you today and speak to you for Arizona Audio Stories and for my radio show, which is going to be re-airing this, is that on May the 2nd, you will be in Phoenix at the Arizona Latino Arts and Cultural Center doing a reading, signing your books, talking about not just this new book, but other books as well.
Yes, I'll be bringing all of my books, and I'll be happy to open it up to the audience and have questions and answers after I share what color is your hand, de qué color es tu mano. And I want people to know that Victor Villaseñor gave me an endorsement for this book.
The author of Reign of Gold.
Yes, and at the back of the book, I also have QR codes, which might be a little bit new to people. And they can,
to some people, yes.
They can zoom in and listen to the Songs for Humanity that I've put at the back of the book.
Okay, wonderful. Roni Capin Rivera-Ashford is the author of What Color is Your Hand, de qué color es su mano, and many other books, and she will be here in Phoenix at the Arizona Latino Arts and Cultural Center on May the 2nd. She'll be here reading excerpts from her work and also signing copies of her book, not just this book, but other books. Thank you so much for joining us, Roni.
Thank you, James.